The day's proverb comes as we welcome our guest for this hour. Boaz Waruku is a strategy and policy advisor at the Elimu Bora working group. He's our guest this morning because we want to talk about reforming the education sector. This word of reform, I asked him, so we are reforming education.
Do you need a reform? Reform. Okay.
Reform is we've been reform. Anyway, let's welcome Boaz with the day's proverb. Boaz, today's proverb is from Malawi. And the proverb goes like, the most fragrant of flowers are eaten by the green fly. The most fragrant of flowers are eaten by the green fly.
Good morning, and thanks for introducing me with a proverb. And as an African, proverbs are best served in the local language.
So this one somewhere, it's lost in translation.
You risk losing some translation. But I guess it could be also similar to, they say the early bird gets a worm, but they also tell you the early bird might also be caught by the worm, might also be caught by the eagle.
Or the early bird catches the early worm.
I think the best fragrance in this case for me is a case where you could be blooming, very, very well and attractive. So being attractive invites lots of interest.
It has its positives and its negatives.
Just like a mango tree with all those mangoes hanging there, that is where the children would like to play. So that's what I consider this to be.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Thank you.
Boaz, tell us about Elimu Bora Working Group. What is it?
Thank you very much. Probably I would tell you that Elimu Bora Working Group is a working group, as the name suggests. People are working.
It's not like a working party, like the presidential working party.
Yeah.
Okay, we also work with several others, including giving opinions and suggestions on what needs to be done to transform this education. I think you talked about reforms. As we are looking at the total transformation of education in this country, and we're saying that the members of the Elimu Bora Working Group have been very active in education policy development. They've been anchoring heavily on the rights to education, particularly the Article 43 of the Constitution, socio-economic rights, the rights of the children, 53, and the attendant legislation's basic rights, Basic Education Act, the Children's Act, and the Sexual Offences Law, because that protects also the children. So for Elimu Bora Working Group, it brings those diverse interests that have expertise and deeper knowledge on education, including the University Academic Staff Union, Kenya Human Rights Commission, the Uraia Trust, and of course, the role that Uraia Trust plays within the civil society sector and supportive of key government agencies in policy development in this country. And so there's the grouping that evolved as the Elimu to Itakayo, that's the education we want, and which also developed key benchmarks on how do you really evolve an education system that is suitable for Kenya. And now we're looking at it within the 21st century. There's the Kenya National Interface Team, which is called NIT. Now that when I mentioned that, in Kenya here, I think people should also know that there are some Kenyans who just sit somewhere to think about this country. And they just want to know that Kenya is not headed in the wrong direction. And should they detect that, we were sailing to Sao Paulo, but we are heading to Mumbai. There's something wrong here. Guys, there's something wrong. We risk getting lost somewhere. So that is what NIT does. Okay. And in brief, I think those are some of the key anchors. They are the co-host of the Elimu Bora Working Group. And the basic agenda is to rediscover what education is all about in this country. I think we have been just fumbling in the dark from colonial period through to post-independence period and up to now. So we call it the neo-colonial era.
What would be the indicators of that thesis?
I'm saying so because you look at the documentation we have and the practice, totally different. But the colonial area was very clear. They wanted to educate Africans for the market as people who will just do manual work. They were very clear. But immediately after that, I think Kenyans did not take time to discuss what kind of education do we want. Education for what? So the philosophical foundation of education has never been discovered in Kenya. And I'm happy that NIT, within that Elimu Bora working group, has been heavily investing in just thinking of what should we be talking about as education. Leave alone, this idea of when people are discussing education, then somebody gives you numbers. 844, they give you 76, whatever.
Oh, no,
that's not where the matter is. Education for what, and how do we evolve that? What would be an indicator, for example, when you meet somebody in South Africa, and even after maybe interaction and all that, you say, that looks like somebody who has learnt in Kenya. That is a brand that many of us would have wished to see. In other words...
Are you saying we don't have that? Because the way you're actually painting a picture, like for the last 60 years and even beyond that, is we have not had an education that serves any purpose in this country.
We've had education that has a total disconnect from its conceptualization. Why do I say so? For example, I've had many Kenyans talk about, we have 8 education goals. And sometimes I ask them, do you know them? Where were you taught to arrive at that and all that? And how is that translated into the curriculum, the concrete work that we do? Then you realize that there's a total loss. You come to how do you deliver an education system without the teacher and the learner at the center? Because I think in Kenya we've somehow had that very unfortunate situation. Let's situate this in the CBC that was rushed. Where you find teachers saying, please involve us, let us converse, have a candid conversation on this. But you saw the roughshod with which some of them faced it, particularly their leadership. And then you'd also realize that at a time when they're saying, but you are making adjustments, I would call this adjustments within the education sector. You're doing adjustments in curriculum. Indeed, in Kenya, we may actually be the only country that produces books or materials before we agree on the curriculum.
The curriculum itself.
And those are very difficult situations. And yet, outside here, we want to put a brave face that things are right. So why am I saying that? Is because when the teachers, you're being told, we actually induct these teachers, we'll train the teachers. You start by who is going to train these teachers? I thought the teachers are the teachers who should be actually carrying out that training. And so why I'm going there is because I think a lot of the problems that now we are facing ourselves dealing with as an emergency are issues we should have dealt with long time ago. If only. So
where is the problem? Is it a policy issue? Because you said disconnected right from conceptualization.
Yes.
Is that a policy issue?
It is a policy issue.
Do we have an education policy?
It is a policy issue. It is a leadership issue.
Do we have a policy for education in Kenya?
I wish I would
a written and documented policy.
I wish I would touch it here. Yes, we have, because if you look at the Basic Education Act, it attempts to give you an idea of where we are going. But in terms of composing it in a wholesome manner, because education, for me, it starts from the crib and it's lifelong.
So we don't have a policy document. Right now, the country is working towards, we're discussing tax matters. We're discussing a tax policy.
Yes.
We have a food and nutrition security policy. Do we have a policy called education?
The ministry will tell you they have.
Policy.
The ministry will tell you they have. The problem that I would have is that we could be having a document in place, but the policy is a practice part of it. And that's why I'm only singling out, if I'll be very comfortable with the Basic Education Act. Why? Because the Basic Education Act, if you look at it, it actually attempts attempts to bring to fruition the spirit and the values of the principles encaptured in our Constitution of Kenya 2010. It brings the foundation of what education is supposed to be. But then I'm saying we get lost somehow because you're looking at, Kenya, we are quick. We want to develop very good materials. And the practice then even within that constitution, when you're told about public participation, then you realize you want to push people towards changing an education system that they're barely sat to understand what really are the loopholes, what is ailing the one that we are having.
Okay.
And
if we look at policy, obviously we know policy to be the operationalization mechanism of anything, right?
Yes, I agree.
Putting it into practice.
Yes,
that's what policy is.
Yes.
Now, we've talked about the fact that there's so many elements that have gone wrong in the education system, and education in Kenya is so layered in the way in which it's delivered, in the way in which it's practiced, in the way in which it's formed at the ministry level, and then passed out to now what we have as counties.
Yes.
What would you say, if it's possible, through those layers, is the problem that is being faced today? During the first hour of this show, we talked about the fact that there's a proliferation of private schools, of private institutions around the country. Commercial, exactly. And one would think when you hear private education in the country, you think of a swanky building with people wearing ties and coiffed hair. But it could be your little room where 10 children...
Community school.
Exactly.
Your business behind the guard.
Exactly.
Yep. Yes.
For me, that's one problem. There are a myriad of issues when we look at Form 1s who went back to school yesterday.
Yes.
Look at now grade 7s who've gone back to school and the layers of issues that we are seeing there. What would you say are some of the issues that the education system is facing today that perhaps this policy, if there was a working policy, that would then be able to iron out some of these issues?
I like the aspect that you bring on the table. Education is layered. Layered to achieve what? You are addressing philosophical issues around education. Because the moment you have a clear philosophy of what our education is to enable us achieve, then even the policy framing comes into place. You'll then realize that, before the child steps into school, how do we support the parents to develop that child and prepare for learning? Because we want this child who, when they are going to interact, they are not interacting and then they start having very peculiar kind of habits and all that, because that learning has begun with the parent and it's coming into the space where the other children are also involved. So that layering speaks volumes about when the lower part and the middle and the top and all that is not speaking the same. It's because that they are not attuned to that vision, which I'm talking about as the philosophy of this education. Then that is where we start having problems. How? Because right now, when it's not that clear, you'll start finding that then you've not provided for the ingredients that are needed to produce that child at that level. And that is why then you still tell them, but we want our children to be very practical, yes, knowledgeable, competent. In a way, they have skills, they can use their talents and social skills, they can interact. But then you realize that you are not providing for the formation of that child. And then the little, because nowadays, I don't know what this obsession with the private education has become. Because then you'll find that everybody, Tom, Dick, and Harry, Onyango, Pio, Wandera, and all that, puts an academy, say Spice Academy, sorry to use that.
Yeah.
And then people think there's quality in there.
Yeah.
But then they've not gone deep to realize that the parameters of quality are very different. The parameters of quality are not in the tie and the shoe and the socks. The parameters of quality starts first with that teacher there who has an understanding, has been enabled and has that understanding to deliver the curriculum there, a motivated one. Not one that feels that if I coughed here, then I'll be delocalized, for example. Let me use that as an example. I think you understand that a spirited, well-motivated teacher would turn stone into water, still water for us to drink. Why am I saying so? Because there's no child who is incapable one day step there. A teacher would be able to understand this could be learning slowly.
Yeah.
So let me see how to do it. That a motivated teacher would do.
So
you put the teacher. I took just an example of an ingredient of what the quality would look like, and at that layer, and attempting to answer in the manner that we must be very clear at what level and what is the contribution to the next level. I like some of the pronouncements. We may call them policy pronouncements. 100% transition.
Yeah.
So assuming that you've developed the foundation so well, it is your building, your house you're constructing. The foundation is so well. Then all of a sudden you come with matope and unaanza kuweka wall. Then you start realizing there's something is not adding up.
The foundation is good, but...
Yes, the foundation is good. But I'm not saying that the foundation is good currently. I'm simply telling you that why I think because layer 1 to layer 2, layer 3, and then it goes. But I was putting the element of the academy because this obsession that our people also think that the quality is in there. One thing which you need to know, education as a public good, if not delivered, developed first well and delivered through publicly funded investment, then many of our children would not survive because it will create inequality because it would be those who are able to pay who will get it. In the urban areas, the slums, for example, you realize that for quite some time, the government assumed that those slums had no people. Am I right? It's true. That's why you'll find public schools are not there. And so because the parents, as a parent, you would wish to see your child learning. What do? You come together, one parent, the other, and you say, can we start a community school? And that's why I think the coming into place of the the alternative basic education policy in the slums and all that, which was creating a window of opportunity, at least for a form of education that would be managed and administered to certain level of quality. That was a very good aspect of bringing this. So for me, when you do not provide and you make the parents to have the only recourse to their children learning is a private, for-profit institution. I said, my business is my business. My business at the backyard, I can do anything. And just when COVID came, it taught us a lot of things. There are many private schools. What did they do? Some converted to poultry. Some converted into anything. And let me tell you, there are even some that converted to beer dens, beer gardens. So in other words, when you are investing as a for-profit person, you scale it, you say, so what is giving me money? If it is, I can easily close that school and start something else. So that's why for us, and the Elimu Bora, we insist and say it is the responsibility of the government to provide this education using our taxes, which it collects, as a priority. And not just to make our children be in school. Like now, grade 7 are in school, but are they learning?
Who knows, man?
How can you? No, tell me. Let's be very clear. Because learning takes place when the interaction of the child, the teacher, the materials, and all that. Do you have teachers in there?
No, we are waiting. They said
we are waiting. The growth does not wait.
They said next week.
The child is in school.
This child is in school. They are going back. That we have come back from school, and the parents. Some parents think they're learning, but you see, we have to call this out, and we have to say, please.
But then, Boaz,
yes, please.
This conversation has been there for many years. Even by the time we were rolling out 844 in 1985, it was as a result of a conversation about let's look at our education system and where we ought to go. We've had since then several other conversations. Coach report, and I'm sure you know all those reports.
We have over 20 such presidential
all those reports.
Yes.
Because the president listens to the people and hears we need to have a conversation on where we need to go as an education, as a country for education.
Yes.
Report number 1, report number 2, report number 20.
Yeah.
We are now in CBC. We have a working party, presidential working party on education reform.
Next month they'll produce a report.
Another one.
Yes.
It sounds like you people in the education sector are really interested in just sitting down and talking and producing reports. But those reports are not convincing enough for the political leadership to see, yes, this actually makes sense and let's move. For the policy makers to see, this makes sense, let's implement it. And when it's implemented, it makes sense.
Thank you very much. I would have wished that this is the time that we pile those 24 presidential reports of the past. And you look through them first and look at what was recommended and has it been followed. The one that we are about to come up with, and first, by the way, we should have been having an interim report. It was handed over to the president on the 1st of December 2022.
Yep.
Have you received it?
Yep. Haven't come across it.
I haven't come across it either because I'm informed it is for the appointing authority, but it is our taxes that are used to generate that. We want to interact with the issues that are in there so that we start and we give any opinions. By the way, I'm speaking.
It's called
here.
validation.
I'm speaking here because I've been part of the NIT team that interacted with the Presidential Working Party, and some of the issues here we generated and told them if you do not go that deep, then you would not be helping. So what I'm saying, because you mentioned those many reports, I wish this was the time that then they'll go through. But of course, some of those reports are very, very what would I say? Like the Bicha report.
Outdated.
Okay, they are not in sync with the thinking
Out of
of
reality?
the 21st century. The Bicha report, for example, because that one was just before it was not repealed, but the understanding that, okay, can we allow just a few of the Africans now to be able to go to the secondary schools and all that. So there are some comical elements within some of those reports which we'll still be able to trash. But what is important now, as Kenyans are grappling with lots of issues, by the way, the debate is coming at a very difficult time in the life of many Kenyans. Why? Because this is economic issues, survival. You know, the parent who has 8 children, a single mother, is struggling to know how do I even buy new uniform for my standard, my grade 7. I'm being told he or she is in secondary, but I see going to that primary. So grappling with how do I decide? I have only 100 shillings. Do I go for even the unga would not be enough, but so for making some porridge. So there are many difficult choices that we're making. But what we are saying, with all these things, because solutions are never gotten when things are just smooth and plain. This is the right time to get the right solution. And getting that right solution, I would be appealing to the president. This is the time to rid education sector of unnecessary politics. Things which would only make people to toe the line, to koto. That, okay, if you bring an idea that unapinga serikali ama rais, so I think open it. Let it be an open space for candid discussion, interaction, and even as the working party is developing their report, which again, of course, indicate that they have interacted with the public in the various counties rather, and then they've received certain memoranda, which is good, but they should now allow that space where Kenyans themselves will distill and say, this one is not good enough. You've had, if it is CBC guys, you've had now almost 8 years thinking about it, preparing for it.
Rolling it out.
And then you land with a junior secondary school with no children.
With no teachers. With no facilities.
No
you actually don't even know.
facilities.
Are they going to a new school, to the old school?
You're telling them that they'll be walking to the nearby secondary school
for
labs and all that. Those secondary schools themselves are ill-equipped.
Yep.
But you've not even looked at the insecurity issues around there. And by the way, you are transferring a lot of that cost to the parents when we as Kenya, in our own constitution, we've said basic education is free and compulsory. So how then do we again roll that back? And then look at how the registrations were going on. It is a registration that even the experts in the education sector would tell you they don't understand what's going on. They're just saying, please, let us go there and see if things will even out. I think education, for a country to be considered to be successful, start by checking its education sector.
100%.
Because because that's what produces even the people that you'll see there.
Yeah.
So if in itself it is so chaotic and so unplanned, so unpredictable, what do you think other sectors are like?
Imagine.
That is a big question that you'll be
Let's
asking
take a break
yourself.
at that point.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Conversation continues. This is a Situation Room live on SpiceFM, on KTN Home and online. We live stream the show every morning on YouTube and Facebook. SpiceFM KE is our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. It's Eric and Ndu. City is away, but we have his doppelganger in the studio. Everything plus the shirt.
Quite uncanny.
And sitting right where City
Please,
sits.
I'm not qualified to sit where he sits.
Boaz Waruku is a strategy and policy advisor, Elimu Bora working group. We are discussing transforming education sector in Kenya.
Yeah, I'm looking at policies because I'm still on that policy issue. Because for me, the policy delivers the thing.
Yes.
Again, doesn't matter where, right? So all of these things that jump out at us that we then would attribute to a failing education system is the lack of the following of a particular policy. So then one must ask the question that does a policy actually exist? And I'll give you an example of things that have popped up this week. So that people will now say it is failing. Well, why? Okay. What's the policy on school fees?
Yes.
When we say there's 100% transition, that means everybody must go to secondary school out of primary school, for example. We say it's free. But then there's still payment that is made.
What exactly is free?
What exactly is free? What is the policy? What does it mean? That 1 shilling should not come from a parent's pocket when that child is delivered to school. What is the working policy? Number 2, what is the policy on uniforms, for example? Everybody's jumping out of the woodwork doing their own thing, but it's a pain point for a lot of parents. What is the policy on that? When you talk about CBC, what is the policy for the delivering of this curriculum? There are certain things that you talk about which must be extra or co-curricular activities. What is the policy in a school where the infrastructure, for example, for the deliverance of this thing does not exist? What is the policy? And it may look as though we are saying it's too nitty-gritty, but for me, it has to be.
It's got to start from there. In fact, even looking back into what is the policy on teacher education, teacher training, teacher recruitment, teacher retention, teacher motivation. What is the policy on quality assurance? Right? All those things, if we had a policy document. So I've seen that there's an policy document for 2017, but this one is on the National Pre-Primary Education Policy. Right? Do we have a national basic education policy at all that then looks at this is what our education system is all about, and this is how we shall achieve training or educating our children?
Thank you. And first, I'll agree with Ndu. I'll start from where she began, and saying that let's not be apologetic when we say you go to the nitty-gritties, because education is like surgery. You must look at it, even using a microscope, so that you're very sure that the details therein are well aligned. And so when you were mentioning the issues of the school fees and all that, there are certain things which Kenyans should really not be going back to discuss, because they are cemented in our own governing instruments. I'll come back to Eric when you were saying whether there's a composite thing that we'll call an education policy and all that. I've told you that I'm also still looking for it, to touch it.
Okay.
Because I know the components of when I'm engaging and talking about the school fees. I know that we have a commitment nationally in our own constitution, in the Basic Education Act, and internationally, we are the first ones who even signed to the SDG 4, which prior to that, the Dhaka Framework of Action 2000, Kenya is at the forefront of that. Jomtien, 1990, Education for All agenda. How do we achieve it? Kenya's signatures are there. Incheon Declaration, 2015, the framework that now is guiding us towards education by 2030, that we should be ensuring that there's universal basic education, which is free and of quality, and that we should also be developing and expanding spaces in our higher education. All these things, I mean, they are...
Kenya ratified.
Kenya is not just ratified. Kenya had a leader role, co-chairing the SDGs with the government of Hungary.
Yep.
At the AU, where the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, Dr. Beatrice Hamatinjenga, Kenyan, seconded by Kenya, was the head there. So I'm saying it is not, as it is not a matter of, do we know them? Because we have taken a lead role and committed to them. So we should not now be coming back to discuss fee-free or free basic education. I said there could be documents in place, but what is the practice? And it is really when you continue to say, because when the policy that then would address, when we say it is free basic education, what do we exactly mean? I think the question also touched on that, to the extent that, of course, there are people who may bring other innuendos inside to confuse matters. And I know of those others who have even talking, you mean you want your children to be fed by the government, you want your children to be clothed by the government, so I say there's a way in which our policy framework should clearly delineate and demarcate those roles and responsibilities. And when we talk of free basic education, the tuition thing that we continue to see should be a gone case. The infrastructure fee that we keep on seeing coming in, and those ones should be a gone thing. In other words, we should be taking maybe a key. Let me give you the Nigerian experience. I know they are also still fumbling with it, but they institutionalize what they say basic education fund. The Uzbek, that's the commission that is overseeing that. They're saying that here is a fund where every year a percentage of the tax revenue is hived off and put in there. That money does not go back because we have emergencies. No, exclusively for education. In other words, there's no return valve. And that money is loaded there, and from there, the Uzbek ensures that then we are going to, this is for infrastructure development. This one is going to support, because we also require to do further research. I mean, research in the true sense, not this research we are doing in partial fulfillment of a bachelor's work, and then you look at who can help me do that. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm saying research that brings solution to the problems we have in the country. So I've given you that as a working example in Kenya, because if we were clear on that is the path we wanted to do, we would have been institutionalizing all this, so that by the time child goes to school, the parent is so clear. I mean, I'm not leaving my child, I'm not throwing the child naked to go to school, because now I have to ensure that they are clothed. But also, you deal with the issues of, even if it is school uniform and in that manner. Because school uniform, the problem we've had in Kenya, and I think it's a product of our education system, is every opportunity that presents itself, you start by, what do I extract from it? That is the wrong system. Yes. Why is that wrong? Because even the uniform that a little child is going to, you start by saying, can we have it given at the school level? And what is my catch? Can I be getting 20% and say, or you say now, like I think the CS trade has jumped into it. And of course in Kenya is our first one. Because every CS, anyone can just jump in and tell you or give you direction. And you wonder where it starts and then they say, no, let us liberalize. And they can buy uniforms at all time. And I think this one would remind me of primary school and all that. I'm a rural boy. I grew up in Kanyalu, Homboga, that is in Homa Bay. And one thing I know that when also we were going to buy those uniforms, and when I see blue, I come shining in my blue. Then I realize that my blue is not like the other ones.
So uniform is not uniform.
So uniform is now not uniform. So in other words, because, I mean, these are things we've gone through.
Yeah.
So you design a proposition as part of a solution. That would cure that. But you do not do it
To
for
extract
to extract from it.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this idea, this obsession with, even this what I still want to, can I blow it apart so that it is even more filled? Just ensure that once the standards are there, then you meet those standards. And to because you mentioned even on the CBC and all, but I'll say that maybe the Presidential Working Party would help the president evolve what would be a CBC thing. My position, 8 years is too much. You've wasted our children. Please, you did not know where you were going. Please, can you accept? Can we call the bluff? Can we say that we are taking these children for granted? For example, I have a boy who is CBC at that level. I mean, the children in my house are all my children. So when I say this, this is somebody whose work, I mean, who continues to ask me, Daddy, but we were recalled to go and clean the market because it was a national assessment. Or we did some national exam at grade 4. We've now done another grade 6 assessment. And all that, and so, but I thought the system we are replacing was too exam-oriented. And anyway, I'm saying this because I discuss a lot with those little ones. And so when they say, okay, because exam is also not meant to torture you. It is supposed to help assess the level of learning, how you've acquired knowledge. But when now each and every time you're taking away from exam, but you're bringing them to even more exams, and after that, then they are now even in deeper problems. They wonder, what was the value of that grade 6 exam? And then don't before you reach there, come to the grade 1. 10 subjects. What does that mean? A minimum of 10 textbooks.
Yes.
My sister or my daughter, I may be free to call you. So when
in grade 1,
when grade 1,
at
10
age 7.
subjects, at least 10 textbooks.
And one classroom notebook and one homework exercise book.
And that the notebook, the assessment rubric, so to call it. By the way, I have looked at those things and I say that is a whole day's work for a teacher. So when does the teacher teach? So I'm simply saying, let's call the bluff.
So we just say, forget about it.
Sorry?
We say, forget about it.
I don't think we are ready for
We
that.
go back to Egypt.
I don't think we are ready for it. But if you know you're not ready for it, like I've told you what our grade 7 children are doing in school, because they are not teachers.
Okay,
Don't tell me that one teacher is handling those learning areas.
So we are not ready for it. So what do we do?
We knew that we had a problem with 844.
Okay.
We know, at least if we have forgotten, we can revisit what are some of these problems so that we fix and say we give ourselves a period to think through evolving an education system that would be suitable for us.
So say the president said, Boaz, I watched you on SpiceFM this morning and you said, let's call their bluff. It's been 8 years and this thing, in your opinion, is not working.
Yes.
So Boaz, what do we do?
I've simply
Reverse to 844?
I've told you. get the 844 working for a period. Okay. Let us rethink this. Let's not continue pushing our children when they are not learning. Because right now, term 1 is going. And I told you, even a child who is born today in the morning has already started acquiring certain things. Time waits for no one. Time waits for no man. But even for women, it's even more worse. It doesn't wait for anyone. So it would be very disastrous if we fumble and continue just, trying to move with these children, thinking they're learning. And we know, as of now, we know, unless somebody convinces me otherwise or convinces others, it is not me alone. Because when you do not have teachers interacting with those people, what learning is taking place? Absolutely. And you're seeing so many things. It's akin to, let me simplify this further. Let's take grade 7 as like the Form 1. It's like a Form 1, then you're saying, okay, at least we've posted some 30,000 teachers. Or 30,000, but I know 8,000 of them, it's because of attrition, dead, retired, and all those who have left. So assuming that each school, because we have over 25,000 public primary schools. So I'm assuming that each school has one. That teacher is a maths teacher, is a biology teacher, is a physics teacher, is the Kiswahili teacher, and assuming that school has multi-streams, not just one class. And that's why I'm saying, can't we see that there's no learning taking place? The environment, the facilities and all that. Do we really just continue to say, the utopia and the hypothetical thing that there's a competency that is being competency from what and with what? From where? And nobody is doing what.
But isn't there an inherent problem? I mean, and for me, it's from the beginning. Because we could give examples.
I said conceptual, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because here, and I'm stuck on this issue. We saw the other day.
Yeah.
If there's a policy in place and a body like SRC comes in, for example, and says, now, okay, we're going to reduce the amount of money that's going to be paid to ECD teachers. The policy then should be able to the practitioners of policy should then be able to come out and say, excuse me, if you do this, what you're doing is that you're loading a lifetime of frustration on these children. Because those who are going to teach, they are imprinting a foundation on these children, and you're taking away dignity by paying them.
Can I show you the face of confusion?
So how then are you going to build a system whereby from the very foundation it is flawed? You've demoralized the agents of education. How do you do it?
Can I show you the face of confusion in Kenya? That the ECD teachers, SRC emerges and tells them, we'll pay you 7,500. But then you're told the National Police Service and the Prison Service, we are setting a task force to review
your pay.
I'm just painting for you the face of confusion in this kind of why, if we are not serious, because that has to do with leadership. Why it is important for us to be very clear. I said a teacher, and by the way, at that very kindergarten, the lower level, that teacher is very important.
Extremely.
Very important. That teacher would infuse in that learner the kind of attitude towards learning, the character, the formation that you would see. Some of us have not realized that the era past 2010 is different from before. When under trees you'd find somebody who did not even go beyond Form 2 and all that, and saying, I'm available. Can I have space here? And can I send the parent, the children to tell their parents, if they have young ones, to bring them here so that we start? Beyond 2010, Kenya changed, and it changed significantly. Those who live before that should wake up and come to the 2023. In fact, after that, now this is the 13th year. In other words, early childhood care and development is a key component of our development agenda and needs to be planned well, including starting with the teachers. And I said, if you demotivate them, teachers not just at the kindergarten, teachers at the various levels. right now, I tell you that there are teachers, I get feedback. Okay, let me not use the I more because it's not me alone working on this. The feedback we get is such that even the teachers who had been trained to teach in the secondary high schools, who have now, they didn't have a job, but because now they're desperate, so they said, okay, can we they volunteered, they accepted to be recruited to go to the junior secondary school.
Yeah.
So they're saying, but now we are in the junior secondary school, but the head teacher of the junior secondary school is the head teacher of the primary school and all that. So they start wondering. In itself, that is a demotivation. But two, the kind of engagement that they're being given. Some intern teachers, contract teachers, and all that. A teacher who has been trained, who went for the teaching practice, in as much as we have not changed the module for training what we now want as CBC, because the training of teachers has not changed.
It's the same.
It has not changed. It's still the way the 844 teachers are, all that. It's still the training going on. In other words, we've not changed at that level. So this is a teacher who is now coming back. Is actually now supposed to help the learners learn. And the teacher, you recruit them as interns, as contracts and all that. Then you tell them, we'll induct you on the CBC curriculum. And that, you remember, I started by saying, who is this teacher who is teaching it?
Who is inducting them?
So in other words, I'm saying, I think Kenyans must just be, let us call it what it is. A package of confusion in education sector with no leadership at all that you can trust, that is going to drive this process. Please let us stop digging. We are in a big hole somewhere, and let us see how do we rescue.
Is that what you told the working party, the presidential working party? You said scrap CBC.
That that is part of what we packaged.
Okay.
I think I can make available. Ours is not a private report. Ours is a
but your principal recommendation was
public document.
CBC halt it.
We did the assessment and said, one, even the CBC, the foundational philosophy of the CBC is still not clear.
Flawed.
It's flawed.
Okay.
Preparation, we said, it's being rushed, and it's been rushed in a manner to exclude critical voices and, in fact, to intimidate. In fact, I can talk about this all over, not because Sosion is my friend and all that, but at the time when Sosion was leading that, then you remember that part of the course why he was deregistered as a teacher. So when the critical voices are either isolated or annihilated, you probably do not have a way of doing. So we made those recommendations, and we said, one, financing. Have we even prepared on how to finance? Who has done the costing?
Who has done all these things?
Who has done the costing to know that that kindergarten child, to educate that,
gets the right thing?
And now all of a sudden 15,000 is being taken.
We get the message. We get the message is, let's have a national conversation about our education sector, and let's be open about it.
Thank you.